Welcome to your Monday, July 24th class. I am sorry I can't be here today, but I want to talk through a couple things. So the first thing we're going to talk through is the keyword static. We've seen this keyword quite a few times, but we've never really talked about what static means. So to look at what static means, first we're going to look at a basic class. Here we have the class counter. Here I've made a static variable count. So count here actually belongs to the class counter. Every single time I create an object like C1 or C2, count is going to go up by 1. I could make as many counter objects here as I want, just like any other class, and if there was other non-static variables, they would work just like we've been having instance variables work. But here, all static variable here does is goes up by 1. Now, there is a whole presentation and coding exercise where you're going to walk through some more details of static. Counter is definitely the most used way to use a static variable in a class, but there is some other ways to utilize it too. In addition to this, I want to talk about static methods. So static methods, well, look at that. We've been using one all along, public static void main. So here, this is static so that we can create a main method that the Java virtual machine can run automatically without creating an object. So utilizing the idea of static has been something we've been actually doing from the very beginning. But let's look at a more relevant example of a static method. So here, in this public class counter, static variables were made using that first line, public static int count, okay? And then in the constructor counter, count always is going up by 1. Static methods are very particular in the sense that they can only work with static variables. Static methods, I'm going to say it again, can only work with static variables. So the only thing here this static method can access or change is that variable count, okay? So I really want you to take some time to go ahead and walk through that static presentation. Right before the static presentation that has coding exercises on coding rooms is one on this. This we've been utilizing, and I know quite a few of you understand it well, but I do want to give everybody a chance to sit down and look at the other keyword that's really going to be important today, which is this. So on coding rooms, there's both the presentation exercise and the static presentation exercise. So those will be the first two things you walk through. So the reason that we're really looking at these keywords today is because we're going to look at a brand new concept. We're going to talk about nested classes. So we're always working with nested if statements, nested loops. In other words, things that are inside of each other, right? If we have a loop inside a loop, then we have a nested loop. If we have an if statement inside of an if statement, then we have a nested conditional. So nested classes are pretty self-explanatory in the sense that they are once again a class within inside a class. But why would we want to do this? So if we have a class A and we have a class B, but the only time we ever use class B is when we're working with class A, then it doesn't make sense to have two separate classes. They take up too much memory. They can't use each other's variables. There's a lot of problems with having two separate classes. So instead, since the only time we use class A is when we have class A, we can encapsulate class B with inside class A. Now it has access to those private variables inside class A, and takes up less memory space and processing power than having two separate classes. So when we go through this, there's then going to be different types of nested classes. You're going to have both static and non-static, hence why we're circling back to that variable, that keyword called static. Really important here, and that's why we wanted to do a review of static. Also, as you walk through these exercises on nested classes, you're going to see how important the keyword this is. This is really going to help you work even more with nested classes. So I know that this was really a short introduction to these things because the real details are on coding rooms. Coding rooms is going to have the lesson embedded with multiple choice questions and code exercises where you're going to go through them one by one. If you have any comments or questions and need help on anything, please send me an email. I may not get it right during class and answer back, but I will get to it later in the day. So please let me know how I can help, and I hope you really enjoy working with this, static, and then nested classes. So go ahead and go to coding rooms and look at those 3 exercises.